What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 259, and we're talking, I got no time for a budget. I'm here to cook. This is Best Served, new Volume 1 with Meta Asian Kitchen. If you've been following along, this is episode 5 of 10, and we are talking budgets, a scary word for a lot of people in restaurants because, again, we're here to cook. We're here for hospitality. We're here for food and beverage, not for sitting in an office crunching numbers. And we want to be able to create the opportunity to spend more time with your guests, with your food, with your team. And so that's what we're focused on. And Best Served New gives us the opportunity to kind of chronicle and coach Ken and Doris through their process to bring people into the fold. And so today we're going to have Andrew Parr with us, who all of you know very well, and as well as David Downs, who is with RSI Restaurant Solutions Incorporated, who really works on the accounting side and tons of functionality when it comes to reporting and crunching those numbers efficiently, effectively, and the ease that they set for restaurants to be able to accomplish that. Because again, it is a challenge. All right, so this series last week, definitely go check out last week, where we got to go down to their location. And actually, while I'm talking about that, I want to bring you guys in. Ken and Doris, last week, as I'm babbling here, menu tasting. We got to taste some of your dumplings. I was so excited to come down there. It was a ton of fun. I think you guys learned a lot. We learned a lot. And a couple things have already come into motion because we took your signature chicken dumplings and you guys did multiple variations with different flour for us to kind of evaluate what that meant from a food cost standpoint, what that meant from the quality of the product and the potential to charge more money. Imagine that. So thanks again to Golden Organics for supplying us with some flours to mess around with that you guys got to play with. So last week, takeaways. Doris, what'd you think? You made dough and rolled out dough for the first time, and they were fire. It was good.
I think it was a lot of fun. Definitely need to figure out labor-wise how we can incorporate creating our own dumpling skin. But, after last week's episode, I actually put our dumplings. We started selling single-piece dumplings for $2 a piece, and I didn't think anyone would buy it. So when we made that first purchase, I grabbed one of my employees. I'm like, go grab chef from the back. And I was like, Ken, look, somebody bought one dumpling for $2. So,
Let's go. I am so fired up.
Yeah.
People have to go to your social media and check it out. It seems like this little thing. It's a receipt, a ticket with just those two dumplings circled. But I know the difference that made. I know how excited you were to say, wow, somebody bought two dumplings. Like now they had those two dumplings. I guarantee you next time they're getting a full order and they're getting a second and a third and a whatever else they get from you. And it makes a difference. Just they now are experiencing the best version of Meta Asia is what we believed, right? Those dumplings, every single person has to try that dumpling because it'll change their perception. It'll change the communication that you have. And financially, $4 more on a ticket with somebody who would have just bought one entree, spending $4 more, we're going to talk about in this episode. It's the difference between the two of you being able to imagine, take a vacation. Imagine that. So I really appreciate it. Ken, for you, they were good. Did you like them, chef? They were tasty, man.
Yeah, and I think I said in the episode last week, kind of comparing it to eating fresh pasta versus dry pasta. You definitely got the difference in texture, and it just tasted more fresh, and that's always the big bonus when it comes to eating food like that.
I could not agree more. And, there's something there, too, as we continuously talking about the two of you are on a mission to elevate away from cheap Chinese food, to really celebrate your culture, your own personal family history, the dynamic of the flavors that are so true to you and what you do, and bringing, new people into the fold, introducing them to something that is so innate in you and so fucking delicious. And so many people don't know. And so you're on a mission more than you're just creating food and beverage. And I think that's super important. And look, people spend $25, $30, $35 on a plate of pasta at an Italian restaurant, but they want to spend $7 on noodles at an Asian restaurant. There's something that we need to unpack there. There's a shift that we need to make, and it comes with educating, communicating, creating the opportunity, and the two of you are really doing that. All right, budget. Does your brain start to hurt the second I say the word budget? Is
No,
the numbers?
We're always high. I'd work at some places at the Sioux, and they'd be like, "Oh, we have our P&L meeting like in 2 hours." And I always be like, "Oh, I gotta stay in the kitchen. I gotta stir the sauce, or like I gotta watch this in the oven, and try to avoid that."
Yep, you always have 3 projects going. Sorry, we got 150 covers on the books tonight. I got to prep. I'm out of here. I appreciate that, and that's the experience that most people have. It's just we just didn't get into this industry. We didn't get into this business. It is a business, right? To crunch numbers. Yet we have to. We have to get comfortable with them. We have to get better at them. We have to understand them. Because if we can master them, we have an opportunity to actually spend more time doing what we love and also create a little work-life balance. Again, imagine that. So let's bring in Andrew now to speak with us a little bit. He's our numbers guru for sure. Andrew, great to see you as always, my friend.
Happy to be here.
All right. So we are going to break down a few terms for them kind of quickly, just so we can kind of understand where we're at. There's a lot of different sheets that I'm looking at, a lot of different spreadsheets, and I just don't know what I'm looking at. So when we're talking about budget, we're also talking about a multitude of ways of numbers that we're looking at. We're looking at budget, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. What the hell are these, Andrew? What do we need to be thinking about?
So your budget is actually the tool that you've created based on your forecast, and you can budget for a week, for a period, for a quarter, for a year, for 5 years down the road, right? And so your budget is your measuring stick, right? Yeah. You're going to take your actual results and measure it against your budget, because if you don't have a budget, and so many people out there don't, how do you know if you're doing well or not? What are you how are you really determining your success?
Yeah. And then P&L, balance, natural, just take us through each of them.
Right. Absolutely. So P&L is actually a reflection of what you've done, what the reality is. And so you can look at your P&L on a week-to-week basis, period to period, same thing. And you can also compare. Sorry, back up. P&L is your profit and loss statement. And
honestly, it's one of those acronyms where I pretended like I knew what it meant for so long. I remember being like, "Oh yeah, I've totally done a P&L before," because we fake it till we make it in restaurants a lot. I wanted to be sous chef, so I said whatever I needed to say to get the job. Have you ever done a P&L? I've made tons of P&Ls. I thought it was like a food item or something. I had no idea. Oh, a profit and loss statement. So it's scary. I get it. I've been there.
Right. And I like a P&L, a profit and loss statement that's set up with the budget on the far left-hand side, so that you can actually see not only what you've done, but compare that to your budget and be able to look at, plus and minus, where you achieved versus your budget. And then your balance sheet is really kind of a statement of your financial condition, right? Like, how much money do you have? Let's just boil it down to the simplest possible thing. How much money do you have, right? And then cash flow is an extension of your balance sheet in a way, and it will show you your assets, your liabilities, and kind of how different things that you do and how you spend money affects your cash flow, right? So let's say you have $10,000 worth of food sitting on inventory on your shelves. That's cash that you don't have in the bank. So part of managing your cash flow is keeping your inventory to the lowest possible level without consistently running out of product, so that you can keep the other money in the bank or use it for, to pay your bills or to pay your staff or whatever you need the cash flow for.
Good. So making sure you understand the difference between these, super important. Making sure you understand how to actually utilize the information in those, super important. And we don't spend enough time on those. And then we just turn around at the end of a month, at the end of a period, at the end of a quarter, and say, where the hell did all the money go? Right. And so it's a very, very important thing to recognize where that money is. And the more you master that, the more you can move those pieces around to just manifest whatever you need it to be. It can be whatever you need it to be. And I think that's an important distinction there for sure. So,
And I think one other point to take away from this is that your P&L is a snapshot of how you've done in a moment of time, but all of the documents that we just talked about used together give you an idea of where you stand long term. How much money do you have in the bank? How protected are you for the next 3 months, 6 months, 4 years? And that's where all of those tools working together help you.
I like it. All right. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room always when it comes to cost, when it comes to budget. We're talking prime cost. Break that down for us. What is prime cost?
So prime cost is total cost of goods sold plus total labor. And so COGS, cost of goods sold, right? And what that includes is both your food cost and your beverage cost. Some people include non-alcoholic beverage in their food. Some people who have a really heavy bar business include it as a mixer in your cost of goods for liquor. But it's basically food cost plus beer plus wine plus liquor plus total labor cost divided by your sales. And so again, one of the words I hate saying along with razor thin margins and pivot is industry standard. And we'll let Jensen jump in on that in a little bit.
Dude, you just got my blood boiling 100%. Industry standards. Look, Ken, Doris, anybody, everybody tuning in right now. Industry standards is so fucking broken. I don't know. It's not even broken. It's just fundamentally not built for the success of the people that actually apply it. Mm-hmm. The industry standards were not built for you or by you. And so we take all of these industry standards as, if I do each of these things, if I work hard, if I put my nose down and I hustle and I grind and I take care of every guest and I make sure that the next plate up is the best plate that I've made that night, all the things that we do day in and day out in a restaurant, if I hit all the numbers that I'm supposed to hit, if I hit the 28% food cost, if I hit the 9% back of house labor, if I hit the 9% occupancy percentage, if I hit these numbers, I should be able to succeed. Yet the reality is no. I mean, time and time again, I have done that. I have hit every single number and I have closed multiple restaurants. And so we have to redefine our expectation of industry standards. So if anybody tells you a number is an industry standard and that's what you're supposed to hit, and if you hit it, you will succeed, they're selling you something. Ken and Doris, like, you have to decide for yourself the numbers that you need to hit because you are a master of your own numbers, and pick and choose the things. And the big place that I always go is mindset. Mm-hmm. We so often are in this cut and control mindset. We cut costs, we control labor costs, right? And what that does is those prime costs too often manage seconds and pennies. Be smart about your numbers. Yet don't sit there and try and pay somebody $1 less an hour or try and cut them down to 36 hours when they really need the 40 hours. And we're going to touch on that a little bit, the way that we think about that. Super important. Drive top line revenue should be the number one thing we're focused on, growth and investment. And if you have a strong budget and understanding the numbers, there's an opportunity, because the thing we talk about with the Paragon pillars is we have to get restaurants to a 19% net profit. Fuck COVID-19, 19% net profit. That's what restaurants need. No other industry, do you go into an industry saying 6% net profit as an industry standard? Sign me up. No other industry does that. 20% is the number. If you're investing, if you're buying stock, if you're looking at the viability of a business, 20%. That's where the number starts. And we say 6%, great. 6% means you're living paycheck to paycheck as a restaurant. It means you're one bad month, you're one piece of equipment away from closing. So when we're working with you on budget, we have to start to map to a completely different set of numbers. And that can be super scary. People tell me all the time, you can't do that. I'm doing 8%, I'm killing it. Why do you think that you're killing it? Because you're doing 8%, because you're doing better than the other people that are doing 6%. We have to shift the paradigm. So that's a big part that we're gonna push for sure, which is why if you understand the numbers, you have an opportunity to, again, do the things that you need to do. And so, one of the things that Andrew and I and Andrew and you and all of us have talked about for you is, like, you need to pay yourself. right? And Andrew, like for you, when you think about a budget, you think about it differently. It's not just the numbers. Like go into why the budget is an opportunity versus a chore, a task, a daunting task.
Right. And that's because I think that a well executed budget utilized with all of the other financial reporting tools gives you financial freedom, right? And that financial freedom is, you know, it's the end goal. You're in business for yourselves. You want to be your own bosses. You are your own bosses, right? You're in charge of what's going on.
Does
But
it
you
always feel
also-
like that, Ken and Doris, that you're your own bosses?
Meta is the boss of us.
Yeah, there you
Right.
go.
Slave to our business.
Slave to the stove. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
True story. But that financial freedom, talk about that, because Ken and Doris, you're creating a life for yourselves, and the two of you as a couple, as what that means for your families and stuff like that. So, Andrew, when we're thinking about the financial freedom, like how are they actually going to be able to manifest that through a budget? Like it doesn't seem like I should care about budget for my financial freedom. It seems like I should care about budget if I'm trying to move pennies around a spreadsheet, which is not what I'm into.
Well, the financial freedom that you get from building a smart budget, adjusting it as you need to based on reality, and then sticking to it and meeting those goals and objectives are that you can pay yourself what your time and value is worth, and you can pay your employees what their time and value is worth. And we've talked about this before, whether you consider it like a bunch of levers on a machine, or whether you think about it as a soundboard where you're moving back and forth and up and down and twisting the knobs back and forth. And all of these adjustments that you're making enable you to look forward and plan. And that's the whole thing, is how can you look forward, plan, anticipate, and not only create a profitable business, but an equitable and a sustainable business as well.
Let's go. All right, Andrew, appreciate you. We'll get you out of here. Ken and Doris. So for the two, are you paying yourselves?
Of course we are. Just enough,
All right.
to cover rent and enjoy a good meal on our days off.
Good.
We're not paying ourselves a lot just because we want to keep as much money in the business as possible.
Yeah.
COVID and the pandemic going on, just want to make sure we have cash flow in the bank for, if something was to happen, pay rent, we can pay our employees, we can pay for food, and whatever other costs comes with keeping a restaurant up and running during these times.
Yeah. And the thing about that is it's important to recognize that you all having the financial security and freedom and building that into your business creates a stronger business, right? And so it's such a thin line what you're talking about, because we've all been there, and it's like, invest your money back in, make sure that the business is secure, take care of yourself last, if ever. And there is something to that. That's absolutely the entrepreneurial spirit and the hustle that's a part of it. Yet you also need to make sure that you have the stability to have the mindset to be able to actually grow your business. Because again, if you're always in the scarcity, barely survival mode mindset, it makes it really hard to focus on those little interactions, those opportunities that create the 2 extra dumplings on the ticket. Like, and the more time we spend on that, the more time we don't cut this cost, cut this person, I only want to pay them this much, versus like, how do I have every single person spend $4 more on their ticket? And how do I take 250 people and turn that into 282 people? That's the difference. That's the difference. Absolutely. So, and we'll touch on that more and more throughout. But I want to bring in Dave Downs from RSI Restaurant Solutions Incorporated. Dave, good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me, Jensen.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I appreciate you being here. RSI is a company that I've worked with throughout the years at multiple restaurants. And 2 big things that I really always found the most value were the forecasting and the reporting that you kind of created. The other thing that I always appreciated was going down and speaking with your team. You guys have a strong team, and you're always looking to be a supporting mechanism. And sometimes when you're a technology company, when you're accounting, it's very cold. right? And we're in hospitality. And so that human interaction is important, even if it does have to be digital. We still want to talk to a person rather than a screen a lot of the times. And so that felt really important as well. So just touch on really quick what RSI does, and then let's dig into forecasting and reporting.
You bet. Yeah. So RSI is a holistic management system for restaurants. And that's exactly what we are trying to accomplish. Not only being able to provide really good technological solutions, but that team of people that are industry experts that are there to walk you through the process and make sure everything is understood. And that's really the key part of RSI is that team.
Love that. All right. And how long has RSI been going?
We turned 20 right before COVID started. So kind of a goofy year to turn 20 years old.
Yeah, I knew it had been a while. And so Ken and Doris are in a situation that everybody is in. You're opening a new spot. Ken and Doris are going from food hall to look to do a full brick and mortar. So they're looking to scale. It's going to change because their team's going to have to get bigger. They're going to have butts and seats that are their own guests, right, for alcohol sales, things like that. So they need to start thinking even more dynamically than they are currently. So let's touch on that a little bit, forecasting. All right. The way that your software works is that you interact with a dashboard that you have to put in numbers for what you're going to generate in sales, what you're going to spend on food and beverage and things like that. Why is that an important functionality?
It's a great question. I think the differentiator for me between budgets and forecasting is really the budget is kind of that annual roadmap. This is what we anticipate this year. Now, nobody foresaw a global pandemic, and how do you adjust and change? Right now, it really comes down to revenue per seat and understanding how much that is, as opposed to revenue per square footage, like we would normally look at in a typical year. Forecasting for me becomes taking that budget and breaking it down into smaller kind of tactical chunks, whether that's a week or a daily snapshot of time, as kind of Andrew was alluding to, but really being able to make those, the budget number a little bit more of a tactical exercise. How can we say, okay, this is what we budgeted for sales this week, $80,000 or $20,000, whatever that number is. How do we make sure we order accordingly and adjust if those sales are above or below what we thought we were going to do? So the same is true of labor and any of those other metrics that we'd be looking at on a regular basis. It's adjusting those throughout the course of the week based on what you know about your business. And right now there is a lot of unknown, Ken and Doris, as you're stepping out of a food hall type scenario and into your own brick and mortar. That is a little bit of an unknown, but it allows you to focus on top line revenues. And Jensen, you said it perfectly. Industry standards, there's no such thing for revenue. I've seen wildly successful $500,000 restaurants and $8 million restaurants close left and right. There is no industry standard for that. It's having that budget and the wherewithal to stick to it to make sure that you have that discipline and can operate as profitably as possible.
Yeah. The forecasting creates the opportunity to in-game make adjustments. I think is super important. And so forecasting for me, I think we saw it up there, but for me, it's like creating a prep list for butts and seats. How do you actually create your prep list? You're going to say, well, how much do I have on hand? What do I expect to go through? What do I need to put together to be able to accomplish the goal that we have, to put together the dishes that you have, or put together the business that you want? And so I think that's super important to recognize. We don't spend enough time forecasting. We're so reactionary. We're only counterpunchers in this industry. And so I think that's important. I know I'm going very heavy handed with the sports analogies.
Yeah.
It's like, that's really, really important. So currently, are you, Ken and Doris, are you spending time forecasting your expected sales for the next week?
No, not really. I mean, I look at our numbers on a daily basis. I have an idea of how much we make on a week to week. So for me, when I'm always just thinking next week, I need to make this much to meet what we made last week, or we need to make a little bit more so we can beat last week. But as far as budgeting and forecasting goes, it's still very confusing for me.
Yeah.
I just don't even know where to start. Where do I pull it? I have the numbers, but how can we determine what our budget is or what our forecast is based on these raw data that we have? I think that's the confusing part.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in reporting. I want to hover on forecast for one more moment, the opportunity that it really creates. And I want to go back to the two dumplings. And Dave, I want to bring you into this. So when you have those numbers and the way that RSI works, especially on the reporting side, you can You can drill down to any single number. And so I think about if you guys are making $60K a month, let's say that's a real number for you. What creates the opportunity for you to break that down? Okay, we're making $13,000 a week, let's say, and $13,000 a week at an average check of X amount, this number of people, you can change that number in the micro. So what I mean by that is right now, currently, if you're seeing 200 people at a $12 average, if you're able to sell them 2 more dumplings and take that to the $16 average, I got to have Andrew run all those numbers because I'm not smart enough, but like that changes $60,000 to $79,000 very quickly. And the fact that you're actually putting the number down, and they have a very clear system. You put the number down and then you can move those levers around. You can say, what if we were at $13 per person? And what if we had 242 people versus this, 200 people, whatever those numbers are. So talk about that and maybe take us, Dave, right into reporting, because that's kind of what we're talking about. The forecast gives you the opportunity to move those pieces around and control your own destiny, basically, versus being, again, reactionary to whatever came in is what came in.
That's exactly right. Moving the levers is a great analogy for that. The budget is kind of what drives the initial, here's what we think we're going to do. The forecasting allows you to kind of fine tune that throughout the course of each week or even throughout the course of each day. Based on what's going on, this is what our sales look like. And the forecasting, we know that on our budget, we have let's say a 29% cost of goods sold for food cost. That's what we want to hit. How do we do that? That needs to become much more tactical in being able to say, well, okay, if I'm going to do $10,000 in sales this week, this is how much money I have to spend on food. If that number goes to 12,000, now this is how much money I have to spend on food. So that's kind of the ebb and flow of forecasting, is being able to adjust throughout the course of the week. And RSI has that kind of weekly declining budget tool that ties in directly with all of the invoices that you scan into the system and upload into the system, so that you can really get as granular as you want to and be able to understand what's going on and hit those budget numbers. That's the goal.
You just touched on something that I think is important to unpack for them. I mean, you guys are on like the minute by minute. Like Doris, you can look at the numbers where you're at and reflect on that. How far into the day are we at? Are we still on pace? Do we need to up? You know what? Do I need to jump in? I was going to prep in the back a little bit, but we're looking pretty good. I'm going to jump up front and I'm going to sell every single person that even comes close to the stand. I'm going to pull them in with my story. I'm going to do something to pull 5, 7, 12 more people to the stall. And then I'm going to get every single one of those 12 and the 42 other people that are going to come of their own volition. I'm going to get them to buy 2 more dumplings. That changes everything. That changes everything. You have the opportunity to do what you need to do for your business versus, well, I was going to go do dumplings. I'll just go do dumplings. Unless you're about to run out of dumplings, then go do the dumplings. Absolutely. But it gives you control. It gives you the choice. So I really appreciate that. And am I right on that? It's like minute by minute. How quickly can they access information for where they're at, Dave?
In terms of sales?
Yeah.
Yeah, with any of the cloud-based point of sale systems, you have that throughout the course of each day. Yeah, hour by hour, you have that at your fingertips because you can log in at any time and see that.
Yeah, and so you can look at that, and then you can compare those numbers to your projections, your forecasting. You can look at those and see where you're at, which I think is very important because like what happens in restaurants all the time is on Sunday we go, oh shit, we didn't hit our numbers. Our sales weren't enough. Our labor is too high. What happens on Sundays in restaurants? Well, you cut 2 cooks and you cut a server and a bar back, and then you get busy, right? Because you're reactionary trying to like hit your number. Well, what happens? Every single person that works that shift, they have a bad shift because they're overwhelmed because they now have to do 3 jobs. Every guest who comes in, they're not going to have the full experience. The likelihood of them coming back, diminished. The likelihood of them telling other people, high, right, about that experience. But you know what happens at the end of that? You hit your numbers. You hit your 9%. Yet the reflection of that number with the reality of what happened because you're so reactionary is a huge vulnerability for restaurants. And I know both of you have been, that situation. It plays out in restaurants all the time. That is the byproduct of us not forecasting, us not controlling our numbers, our budget, of being aware of our numbers and our budget, and then being able to make the right choices. So really want to touch on that. Dave, reporting. You can go there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down. There's so much reporting. It's kind of overwhelming. So you got to like work with your clients and understand what reports are important to you.
Sure.
But to Doris's point, she doesn't want to look at a spreadsheet. She wants to look at graphs and charts. She wants to be able to see where those numbers are in a visual representation, which a lot of people in restaurants do. So talk to that, the reporting capabilities and what's important and what people are looking at.
Anytime we're talking reporting with RSI, it's worth noting there's probably somewhere between 400 and 500 different reports within this system in total. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. To even say, Ken and Doris, you're going to look at 10% of these every month is a fool's errand. 50 reports is still a lot. There may be one that you get every day. Anytime I'm talking about reporting, I'm really trying to tie that back to some specific goal. What are you working on now? New restaurants, 9 times out of 10 in this pandemic year, almost always, top line revenues. How can we keep you focused on driving top line revenues so that you can see your progress proceed? And we have trending reports within RSI that allow you to graphically see what's going on week over week over week. We can trend that out over a long period of time. One of my favorite reports from my history was trying to remove any seasonality. And so I would put together a trailing 52 weeks, just plot the sales, and I could see then my trend. Is it trending up? Is it flat? Is it down? That allowed me the ability to focus. If we're trending up, great. I'm going to work on some sort of cost of goods metric. It's understanding the ebbs and flows and being able to see that in a nice graphical way. But within RSI's framework, the beauty of that system is you're still not having to go it alone and put this stuff together yourself. That team of people becomes a really crucial part of the process. What are you working on right now, Ken and Doris? Here are the 5 reports that I would kind of tie you to, and let's get you some tactics to go achieve whatever that goal may be.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I call it line checks on the numbers. It's like, Ken, Doris, now you're in the kitchen all the time. Line checks are so important. You're basically taking a moment to go through, taste, touch. Is it the right temperature? Is it the right texture? Is it the right cut? Is it the right consistency? All of the things that can take that dumpling and make it the best experience or a subpar experience. And it's those little things of being able to understand the nuance of every single item of mise en place on your station. We do that really well in restaurants, pretty well. A lot of restaurants do. We want to focus on that. Thinking of it the same way, what's the mise en place that you need to have? What do you need to understand at any given time and be able to line check those? That's what we're thinking about. I'm always trying to do this. There's a lot of things in restaurants that we do well, and there's a lot of things we don't. The things that we do well, there's something fundamental about the way that we interact that I think we have a strength that I want to utilize in other places. Our ability to do line checks, our ability to create prep lists. These are strengths that we have in restaurants that I want to deploy against financials, which we usually are not good at. So shifting the mindset towards the way that we operate those, I think is super, super important. Dave, really, really appreciate that. Wanted to touch on cost of RSI specifically, what they need to be thinking about, when and how it's worth it to spend the money. Because a lot of times you're just like, I just don't have the money. What are you talking about? What do they need to be thinking about when they're thinking about the investment in something like RSI or any accounting software whatsoever? Just the investment of that.
Sure. So the importance of it is being able to warehouse as much of the data as possible into one spot, gathering point of sale data, tying that together with invoicing, being able to be a payroll company, having all of those services in one kind of hub allows us the ability then to be able to provide those consultative level kind of engagements. In terms of the overall investment, typically most restaurants are somewhere between 1% and 2% of their total sales is going to accounting and payroll fees. And that's exactly how RSI has structured our cost too. We have 3 different tiers of service that we offer within RSI's framework, depending on the number of units that you have and the level of service that you need. Because we want to make sure we can hit a restaurant that's doing $600,000 annually in sales and still be of value to a restaurant that's doing $12 or $13 million a year in sales.
And is that the entry level? I know Ken and Doris are kind of doing above that number, so they're already, it could make sense for them to invest in something like this. What's the entry number for anybody else who's watching, listening, that has a restaurant that's maybe doing less than 600,000, the number you just mentioned?
I mean, again, it really depends on kind of what their budgetary constraints may be. If they're hitting really low cost figures, we can still provide value for someone doing less than $600,000 in any of our service tiers. because we're going to empower that ownership and the management team on how to put this data to use and be more efficient, be better operators day in and day out.
Yeah, make it actionable. I think that's super important, because it has to be actionable for us, not easy. We don't like easy in restaurants. For some reason, we like to bleed out of our eyeballs. We like simple, though. Simple is good. Make it simple. Make it part of your natural run of show. I'm doing my line checks. I'm checking my reports. Like I'm doing it. It becomes seamless in the way that we interact. I think is very, very important. And that those graphs are enticing, that I can just quick. I see the numbers. I understand it. I know what to do. I can take action on those is important. Dave, appreciate you. And for everyone, lots and lots of resources in the comments. Thanks to Dave and his team for curating a lot of that. We have all kinds of different rabbit holes for you to go down so you can really understand how to manifest your own numbers, manifest your own standards for your business, not the industry standards, your business that is personal and unique to you. And I think that's super important. So Dave, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jensen. Hey, good luck, Ken and Doris. Look forward to catching up with you guys soon.
Yes,
Cool.
for sure.
All right, cheers. All right.
Cheers.
Ken, Doris. All right. Budget. Does it feel more overwhelming now? Does it feel like, all right, maybe there's a couple things that I recognize now that there's some opportunity? Where your head's at?
I think it's always overwhelming when we talk about
Damn right it is.
And for me, I always just think back to like, okay, how do I start? How do I take that raw data and use it in a meaningful way where I'm not bogged down like on a day-to-day, like trying to build a report or like really understanding what I'm looking at without spending like an hour or 2 hours like digging into the numbers. So I think for me, that's where I stand with budget and forecasting and numbers.
Yeah, it's real. That's exactly what it is. It has to become intuitive. It has to be simple, and it has to be actionable for you that you can actually do something about it. Because otherwise you're like, great, I spent 2 hours on a report. I still don't know what I'm doing. And now I still got to go make the fucking dumplings because nobody else, like that's a real scenario. Ken, for you especially, like there are so many strengths that chefs have in the kitchen. And I remember having to drag my sous chefs up the stairs to get them to input invoices. Yet once they got really good at it, they would like go bust it out before they finished their shift. Cause usually they'd leave it to the end of their shift to kind of crunch numbers. And then it would take them 3 hours. And it was like the worst part of their day. And all of a sudden they were like, hey, between lunch and dinner service, I'd go up and I bust out all my invoices. I've input all my numbers and I did it in 42 minutes and it became competitive and it became something that was just normal kind of run a show for them. For you, you have a lot of strengths. We don't think we do. You have a lot of strengths. So I'm going to really push you, Ken. You're going to like become so comfortable with numbers and it's going to allow you to actually spend more time cooking.
He always runs away when I try to talk to him about
I know.
like, I'm for this. I gotta go prep. I gotta cut beef.
I know exactly what you mean. That's exactly what we're going to work around. I appreciate that. All right. Next week, we are talking, to me, always the most important thing, investing in people. We're talking investing in human capital. November 12th, check us out. And it's going to be great. We have Jordan Bush, who's the CEO and founder of 7 Shifts. And they're doing amazing work in the way that they're interacting. I mean, they have 400,000 restaurant users in America. So he's got some great information. So we're going to dig in a little bit. And then we have Carrie Luxem, who is with Restaurant HR Group out of Chicago, and just really, really forward thinking when it comes to the way that we are investing in people. So we'll talk a little bit about, livable wage. We'll talk about benefits and all of these things now that, again, are daunting. And it seems like there's no money to invest in all these different things. So what we see is the numbers play out again and again. It costs less money to invest in people than what it costs to have turnover rates at 73%. So we're going to really dig into that a little bit, understand the numbers, and allow you to, because I know your people are so important to you, allow you the financial freedom to invest in your people so that they are empowered to be the best versions of themselves, to have the stability that they need so they can support your business, so you can get through the 2-week test. And Ken and Doris take 2 weeks off and not worry about their business for one moment while they're laying on a beach. That's the test. And if you have the right people, that's the opportunity. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Sound good?
Sounds awesome. Excited.
All right, Ken and Doris, I will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Later.
All right, everybody. Like we said, next week, November 12th, investing in human capital. Today is episode 5 of 10. So please go check out on YouTube, on Facebook, the Best Served New playlist, and you can find the full series there. Follow their journey. This is a very important series to me. Ken and Doris being the first, allowing us the opportunity to kind of chronicle and coach them along their journey. We're going to be doing a lot more of these where we're going to take different entrepreneurs in their F&B business journey. They want to open businesses, and we want to fill those businesses with a sense of belonging and purpose and the ability to thrive in this moment and every moment. So we're going to be connecting with you on that level. That's Best Served New. That is it for today's episode. Thank you all, as always, for tuning in. Cheers.